Hello, welcome to episode 18 of Harmonious World. I'm Hilary Robertson, and this week I'm joined by Ben Rosenblum, who is an amazing accordionist. When I interviewed Ben, we talked about Kites and Strings, his new album. You'll be able to find the link in the show notes, and I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation.
Hello,
Hi. Hello,
how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. It's wonderful to meet you.
Welcome to Harmonious World.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. I'm really excited to talk to you because I have never spoken to somebody who plays jazz accordion.
Oh, well, my favorite topic to talk about.
Great. And I love the album. Well, for a start, let's talk about why Kites and Strings.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed the album. The title was recommended by my brother for this song. The title track is a song that didn't have a title when I first performed it. Sometimes I like doing this where I'll just bring the songs that are freshly written and I'll tell the audience, I'm crowdsourcing a title. So, if you come up with any suggestions. I've gotten some really good titles that way, actually. But my brother recommended it to me, and I really like the title. The song in question's very kind of ethereal, a lot of space, a lot of soundscape kind of things happening. And then we had this title for the song, and then my mom, who took the cover photo, showed me this picture, which was taken. I used to play every week in Staten Island, of all places, right on the beach. And it was taken with all the kites and the balloons. And, she showed me this picture, and it just kind of, they worked together so well that it seemed like, and I thought in general, it captured the ephemeral, eclectic nature of the music, a little bit ambiguous as a title.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a sense of wandering. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense? And definitely do not mean that in a derogatory way, almost like you've allowed yourself and you allow your audience space to just explore whatever.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. It's a great way to put it. And I certainly think of every musical encounter as an exploration, as a jazz musician and a musician that plays some world genres that are based around improvisation. Of course, the cliche about jazz is that it's never played the same way twice, but it really is true in the sense that I am so reliant on stimuli in the moment, whether it's from my own thoughts, whether it's from the other musicians on the bandstand providing information that's surprising to me that I want to keep exploring, or whether it's the audience that I'm playing for and the context that I'm playing for. I always tell my audiences that they're as much part of the music as we are, because they're creating the atmosphere which will dictate what directions the music goes in. And depending on their responses and their energy and the setting, it'll always be influential in how the music is performed.
Which is actually quite interesting because although we started off in lockdown, a lot of people doing Facebook concerts and live streaming and that sort of thing, I think a lot of people have realized that you just don't get any feedback from the audience, and it's not the same.
It is not the same at all. And it's kind of, I have to draw on my performance experience to remind myself, close my eyes and just say, okay, that all the people are listening out there. Just imagine that they're right here. But there's no replacement for live music, of course. And not only in terms of our experience of hearing it, but also in terms of their experience. Obviously, you get the energy of having people right in front of you, and you get to experience the emotion of it. And you also get to experience music directly with other people. I always find that I enjoy music so much when I get to experience it as a shared experience with a lot of other people who are connecting with it on an emotional level.
Yeah, there's nothing like it, is there?
I
Really?
think so, yeah.
So talk to me about the jazz accordion, because seriously, I have to say, I got sent the album and I was a bit like, oh yeah, right, okay. I was genuinely, my experience of the accordion is not good. And yet I just loved it. I really did. You've really opened my eyes to it. So how did you start? How did that come about? How did you learn it to be better, to be, really, really proficient?
Oh, well, first of all, that's the greatest compliment I can receive. I'm trying to rehabilitate the reputation of the accordion in America. There are a number of countries where the only kind of interaction with accordion they've had is with very boisterous folk music, I'll put it that way. Some of which I love too, but that's what it is. But I'm a pianist first, and I play some piano on the album as well. And so when I started getting more serious about the accordion, I think actually, well, you interviewed Maria Schneider recently. I think the first time I heard the accordion in a jazz context was hearing Maria Schneider and Gary Versace playing in that group. And of course, he's a fellow pianist accordionist. And, I think for me, just he always knows the ways to get in and out and have the most musically perfect thought, so concise, so just, appropriate for what's going on. So when I heard the accordion in that context, I think it opened my eyes to the kind of tonal and timbral possibilities of the instrument. So I started learning more about it, and I became friends with a Croatian singer who I met playing piano, but she said, in Croatia, the accordion is like ubiquitous. It's the sound. And I want an accordionist in my group, but I want somebody with jazz experience. And I said, okay, I'll try. And she said, well, we have a weekly gig starting this Thursday. And, just kind of threw me into it. I was like, okay. So at that point, I had encountered this pianist accordionist who lives in New York, who's from Brazil, named Vitor Gonçalves. An amazing player. He plays with Nat Cohen's larger group and with all sorts of amazing Brazilian artists. And in Brazil, the accordion has such a rich tradition. It's a well-respected instrument. There are accordion soloists with orchestras. There's a tradition of accordion that goes so deep. So I started studying with him around the same time a little more seriously, because I said I really need to learn how to play this instrument if I'm going to be playing it in a professional context. And through him, I started learning about all these different kinds of Brazilian music, choro, forró, music that kind of originated in folk music but have all this improvisation, this jazz influence, very harmonically rich, and obviously all Brazilian music is rhythmically just profound. So through that, I started getting really serious about the accordion. And this is just kind of the common theme. All of these friends and musicians and colleagues from different places just started opening my eyes to all of these different genres. I started playing some klezmer music, some Irish music, French musette, just anything in an accordion. And kind of the last thing that I came back to is, okay, now that I've explored all of these accordion-specific genres, let me bring it back to what I do, which is jazz, and figure out a way to, integrate it. And I saw a wonderful performance by a great avant-garde bass player named Michael Bizio. He has a group with accordion called the Quartet. And when I saw that group, it's Kirk Knufke on cornet and an accordionist named Art Bailey. And the blend of those instruments, it just reinforced what I was already imagining about how accordion could be a horn in a horn section. It blends beautifully with sax. It blends beautifully with trumpet. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, one of the things I was going to ask you was on Philadelphia. Yes. Is that a trombone?
That is a trombone.
But it's really high. It's high on the trombone. It was almost like a flugelhorn, but not quite, which is why I was really confused. But there's a beautiful interaction between the accordion, the trombone, and then it goes into the sax. That line is just gorgeous. How did that come about?
Thank you. The trombonist there, sometimes composers Michael Biggio actually at that concert gave me this very same advice, and I've gotten it from other composers as well, which is that as a composer, you should always write for people rather than for instruments, right?
That's
And
brilliant.
Sam, who played trombone on it, Sam Chess, I went to school with him at Juilliard, and he has that kind of signature, beautiful vibrato, kind of what you might expect from the old school trombonists. Like, I think my all-time favorite trombone is Jimmy Nepper on Gil Evans, Where
Oh,
Flamingos
yeah.
Fly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, I just love the sound of that high-pitched vibrato, very long notes, sliding trombone. And Sam has that in a way that pretty much I haven't heard from any other trombonist my age. So, I was lucky to meet him at Juilliard, and as soon as I had the idea for this project, I started workshopping some of these pieces with my friends, and he came over, and one of the pieces we played was this arrangement of Philadelphia. And as soon as I heard him play the melody of this, I said, when we do this record, I'm going to make sure that he comes in and plays the melody on this.
It is just beautiful. It really
Oh.
is. The other thing which I think is beautiful, I mean, I think the whole album is actually extraordinary, and it needs several listens to, which is the conversation I had with Maria Schneider, actually, about you can't just listen to it and then go, yeah, that's fine, I've done that, with great stuff, I think. And in fact, I interviewed a jazz guitarist from Britain called Rob Luft, and he and I had a long conversation about the shuffle and how we should get rid of it from everything, because it's just horrible, because people put hours and hours of work into deciding what tracks to put on their album and then what order they're going to go in. And if you just hit shuffle, or you get a playlist and stuff just appears, it's crazy.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, especially with an album like this. This album has been many years in the making. I started with 2 piano trio records that are, more along the lines of what one might expect from a, jazz pianist. And I really enjoyed making those. The first album has some older mentor figures for me. The second one was with my touring group at the time. But since the beginning, this is kind of the album I've wanted to make. It's mostly original compositions. Some of the original compositions go back as far as 10 years in their origins, and I love the timbral possibilities of having all of these different musicians. And over the years, I've met those instrumentalists that I feel like really interpret my music in the way I've wanted. And so it's been years of, just marking this person, I want them, I want this person, I want this person, and being able to put that all together, have a lot of guest artists coming through. This album definitely feels the most intentional and the most kind of complete in terms of a compositional vision. So yeah, putting it all together, and then, having one track plucked out, out of context is just like, I think is very intentional that a lot of the tracks are very different from each other, and they're only unified by the sound of the group. And, it is representative of a myriad of different interests and musical influences. And yeah, I hope that they all connect to each other in some way. But I think if you just heard one track, you might not get a sense of what the album sounds like.
No, that's right. One of the tracks that really spoke to me was Somewhere. That's not a common cover version to do, a standard to do. What made you do that and not, say, Maria or something?
Yeah, Somewhere. It's a song, obviously West Side Story, iconic. I grew up listening to that all the time. There's so many great songs from that, and so many great songs from other Leonard Bernstein. One song I play a lot with my trio is Some Other Time, which is another beautiful.
Yeah.
But with Somewhere, sometimes you just have these ideas. Of course, Somewhere is originally jazz ballad in four. And I had this idea to kind of extend the form, put it in three, have odd bar lengths for the phrases. It just kind of spoke to me. This is an arrangement that, again, dates back a long time. I had this project with some friends in college to do a retrospective of Jewish American songbook composers for one of the local Jewish centers. And we picked this song and I arranged it for the trio. And then as I started working, we played it a lot with the trio, and I started imagining that could actually work really well with the accordion and with these horns because, well, one thing I love about having this larger group is that, and I find this especially in the big band composition and arranging of people like Duke Ellington or Maria or Gil Evans, you can choose when to have a smaller group and when to have everyone playing and contrast those. And so I found these opportunities to kind of have a more sensitive accordion melody and then expand it for the bridge when it goes into 4/4 swing and have the big trumpet sounds. And I don't know, it's hard to know how songs, of the many songs that I absolutely love, how one sneaks its way into the consciousness, but I also think that it has some of the most beautiful lyrics of any
Oh, it really
standard.
does. Yeah. I guess, you're a New Yorker, and I think West Side Story was my first exposure to New York in kind of the, I don't know, less glamorous side, I suppose.
Yes.
More real side of it. The beauty comes across in your arrangement. I think it's just lovely.
I appreciate that. And I always think about musical storytelling. And I think when there's a song that has beautiful lyrics, it kind of helps with it gives you a whole palette of emotions to work with, a kind of complex range of interpretation as an instrumental musician.
So talk to me a little bit about lockdown and what 2020 has been like, because obviously, it's been crazy. So how has it been for you in New York and how is it now?
Well, of course, it's been a really difficult time for many of my musical friends and a lot of the music venues here. They're getting by with a lot of support from generous patrons and not making a lot of money by doing the things that we usually do. But in terms of how it's been for me, I've been fortunate to have some online performing opportunities, and I still have my students that I teach. So I've been in a more fortunate situation, and I've just been trying to encourage people to support venues and support musicians and continue to sustain things. Now in New York and in the area, there's been a large resurgence of outdoor live music, and it's really encouraging to see people still finding ways to create music and reach people. And it's very encouraging to see so many people coming out to listen to music. People have been really starved for live music, I think, especially in a place like New York, which really thrives off of the energy and bustle, and there's live music in probably 50 to 100 clubs on a nightly basis that you would want to go see. So, to see people finding ways to still reach others and provide that kind of musical support, and other people providing support to the musicians, and just kind of seeing this local synergy, everyone trying to support each other. That's the beauty that's come out of a pretty ugly situation otherwise. And we're just all hoping that we get back to it and we keep finding ways to keep going. Certainly this project with releasing the album has been a wonderful source of joy for me in all of it.
Yeah. Presumably were you mixing it in the early part of lockdown?
Yeah, we recorded it last year, but I was, I did a lot of the edits and kind of, starting to mix it, but we ended up pushing the release date back of a number of months to accommodate finishing the mix and master, which I was working on right around when the lockdown happened, and then I couldn't finish it for a couple months as, New York was hit really hard at the beginning
Yeah.
of it. And so we were all just kind of staying inside and avoiding as much as possible. So I didn't end up getting to finish it until around May. But I am lucky that the person who does tracking, mixing, and mastering and all of that is my brother, and he's a happens to be a Grammy-winning engineer. So I'm like, I don't know how I got
Wow.
so lucky to have that happen, but we were able to make it work out, and he's amazing. I mean, I'm lucky in general to have, my mom introduced me to jazz, and my parents are both incredible supporters. So
That's fantastic. So what does the future hold? Obviously, you've got this album, and hopefully in the near future you'll be getting out to perform it.
absolutely. I mean, in terms of the immediate term plans, it's so unpredictable and so hard to plan. But I am doing a date at Smalls, which will be a virtual CD release as well as limited in person. So that'll be in December. And of course, the financial realities of touring with a larger group are harder than the trio. I've been very lucky that in the past 3 years I've gotten to tour multiple times in the South and the West Coast, Midwest. Even we did a tour in Japan, in Canada. So it's been great. And I've kind of figured out how to make it work with the trio. With the sextet, it's going to be a new journey, right?
Of course.
But there are a couple other dates in the works. I talked to Ravinia in Chicago about doing a CD release date sometime in April. Might have to be rescheduled because of what's going on, but there are some opportunities to play out, and I certainly will be trying to take any opportunity I can to tour with this larger group, applying for grants and, continuing to compose new material and hopefully do another album, because maybe as a composer, this group right now is where my heart is. I just love being able to, it's very humbling for me to have all of my favorite musicians assembled and playing my music and interpreting it so beautifully. And I just get to have the easy role of laying down the support on the piano or the accordion and just listening to them play so beautifully.
It's a very generous sound in that group in terms of giving people the opportunity to shine. It feels very socialist, if you like, that or that everybody has their part to play, and although it's obviously your gig, it does feel like you're happy to sit back sometimes and let people do their thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that one of the joys of having a larger group is to be able to include more of my friends and inspirations and musical colleagues. Even, there's a pianist that I went to college with, Jeremy Corin, who plays on a couple tracks. And I mean, it's an absolute joy for me. He's one of my favorite musicians. And as a pianist, I don't get to play with other pianists too much. But as an accordionist, now I've been able to play shows where there are these incredible pianists, with me. And it's just a wonderful feeling. I get to experience these things from the other side, right?
Yeah.
And I'm lucky as well that all of the musicians that were part of this project are very much emotionally generous as well. It was funny because on one of the tracks, the motif from Brahms, where I have the longest accordion solo, originally I wasn't necessarily even planning to solo on that, because on the live shows, I often have the bass solo on that track, and I love the way Jeremy sounds on it, the pianist. He's just a beautiful player. And, the trumpet player, Wayne, who I've known for many years, he said, Ben, it is your record. you should really solo on this too. It's funny, they kind of take care of me and they're really dedicated to seeing the music through and the project through to be the best that it can be. And part of the journey of finding musicians to play in the group is not only who I love musically, but also who's going to give themselves fully emotionally to the music and try to elevate the music and make it more than just I got hired for this date to play, I'll play well. But
Yeah.
I felt the love in the music from all the musicians, and I'm so grateful for that.
And that comes across, I think, in the music. There is a heartfelt joy in all of the tracks. I think even the more sort of low key ones, there's, I think, a joy in it. So
yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It makes me really happy to hear that. And of course, it's such a pleasure to be able to tour with the bass player Marty and drummer Ben for 3, 4, 5 years, however long we've been touring, and then get in the album. And it's just like, we've played these songs so many times, maybe not these arrangements, but we've played many of these as trio as well. So we get into the studio and they know the music backwards and forwards. That's a luxury that also I don't take for granted.
Very good. Great. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you can come to the UK. If you brought that sextet to the UK, that would be a great gig. I'd really enjoy that.
I would absolutely love that. So I will try to make this happen.
Yeah, great stuff. Right. And I will definitely be there if you do.
Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. And, it's an absolute pleasure. It went by so quickly. I hope that, we have more opportunities to connect in the future.
Definitely. And I'd love to talk to you again.
Absolutely. And, there's already a little bit of material for the second album, which I'm excited about.
You're very good. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I mean, the time has gone so quickly. It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. But, once you get me started talking about music, I'll just yap forever.
Yeah, of course. But thank you so much for your time, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And it's wonderful to meet you again, and hope to talk very soon.
So that was Ben Rosenblum, who saw music in New York as making beauty out of an ugly situation. And I particularly liked his comment about writing for people, not instruments, which is a fascinating way of looking at the composition process. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that conversation between me, Hilary Robertson, and composer and a jazz accordionist and pianist, Ben Rosenblum. Please do join me again for Harmonious World. Subscribe and then you get them directly beamed to your ears every week. And I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.